you have got to be willing to put aside anything
Yep.
and meet the needs of others,
Yep.
because there are far less fortunate people than us.
The world is in need of a different kind of leader. Every leader must answer the question, am I a serving leader or a self-serving leader? How are you leading in today's society? You're watching the show for a reason, and joining us are the greatest servant leaders of our society. Welcome to the Servant Leadership Show, where we discuss and implement servant leadership in our day-to-day lives and the impact it has on others. Welcome to the Servant Leadership Show. It is an honor to have my good friend, Mr. J.D. Danielson,
Thank
who
you.
is the president and CEO of Renaissance Press and Cross-Site Skateboarding Ministry.
Thank you,
JD.
Damien. It really is an honor and a privilege to be here with you today. I'm very grateful. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you, brother. Thank you. Dude, I couldn't wait to get you on the show. You were number one on my list,
Thank you.
okay, from when this show started. And you are just so you people know, the title of the show, if you haven't read it already, is Serve Relentlessly. This man, JD, has been a great inspiration to me, my family, and in our community immensely. JD, brother, just share with me, let's start off, break the ice a little bit. Tell me about who your mentor was growing up.
Sure, no problem. I would say, I guess, primarily it was my mom. My mom and dad divorced when I was 5 years old. So I grew up in a single parent home. She worked at times a couple of jobs just to try to put food on the table. And as a close second behind her would definitely be my grandparents. And I know that oftentimes grandparents play a huge role in single parent households, and they oftentimes don't get the credit that they deserve. But not only from a godly influence at an early age, but really my granddad showed us what it was like to lead, to be a servant, and to really work hard at anything you do.
That's awesome.
So, and then I guess as I grew up a little bit, after I...
Tell me a little bit about how you work servant leadership in your day-to-day life with your family, growing up with your kids a little bit.
Sure. So first off, I have an awesome, supportive wife. So I believe behind every good man stands as good or a better strong woman.
Yes.
Because it really takes two these days to really make things go. So
absolutely.
As a dad,
I want to just plug in because Clancy is just a beautiful person.
She's awesome.
And the time that she spends with the kids is great, and it's always given 100% of her heart. You know.
Exactly. That's
shout out to Clancy. I love you, dog.
Absolutely. She is awesome. And we feed off of each other. You know, she brings a positive element to serving as well. A lot of things we do together.
Yeah.
I think that's important. I've always tried to instill that in my children as well as now my new children. We've been married now just a couple of years, and so we always try to lead by example. We teach our kids that there's nothing they should not be willing to do. We're not above anything or anybody, that God created all people equal. We're to love everyone unconditionally, and be willing to go and help in a moment's notice. I think one of the biggest parts about servant leadership is being willing to be interrupted in your life. It's very important.
Tell us a little bit about that, JD. I mean, are servant leaders perfect people?
Absolutely not. I am far from perfect, but the good news is I serve someone that is perfect. We'll be open and honest about my faith today. It is what delivered me from the vice of addiction to drugs and alcohol. I've been clean and sober for 23 years now. And so I'm by no means perfect, but the Bible says God uses imperfect people to accomplish His purpose and His will.
Yes.
And so first and foremost is to love others. And we all know the golden rule, treat others like you want to be treated. And so whether that's in my house or whether it's my neighbors or whether it's people I don't even know, you know, we've been on several mission trips which is how you and I
Yep.
really formed a close bond, and
right.
hopefully we can touch on that here in
Absolutely.
a little bit. But I believe it starts in the home,
Yep.
and if you cannot be willing to serve your spouse, your children, whatever their needs are above your own, then you're going to have a hard time doing it outside
But
of the family.
You didn't grow up in a perfect home
Not
as
at
well,
all.
and you fell into addictions, as you said,
I did.
as well. But there was someone else who rescued you out of that as
There
well.
was. There was. And so I was an alcoholic at an early age in high school as a teenager.
Yeah.
When I got out of high school, I wanted to run away from the rules and regulations of the parenting and authority figures in my life. So I moved to Houston, Texas, which is where I was born. And I reconnected with a dad that I'd only seen probably 2 or 3 times since I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
As an 18-year-old. So when I got there, he wanted to be my best friend.
Yep.
And so he at the time had recovered as an alcoholic, which was the crux of really why my mom left him when I was a young age. So, but when I got there, he told me pretty much go and have fun, do what you want. They helped me get enrolled in college. It was my childhood dream to be an architect.
Yeah.
So I enrolled in an art school in Houston and got a Pell Grant from the government.
Yeah.
And soon began to use and abuse drugs, all kinds of drugs. I was a pothead primarily in high school, but once I got to Houston, the word compromise often comes up a lot when I speak to youth, because once you start to take the steps down that slippery slope, it's really hard to not just fall all the way into it. And so I began to use all drugs, from cocaine to crack to heroin to whatever was available. And then shortly thereafter, I was put on attendance probation because I quit going to school, because I would wake up and get high at 9 a.m. and start drinking. And that was my daily life. And so I was called to the admissions office about 1.5 years into college and told unless I came up with about $18,000 something, my days of college were done. And so I was basically kicked out of school and moved back home to a small farming community here in North Texas called Frisco.
Oh.
And about 2,200 people in 1990. And so got back and needed a job. My mom took me back in open arms, because that's just the type of awesome woman she is. And I went and applied at a temporary agency, and they threw me in a printing company in Addison, and I knew nothing about it. I thought it was close enough to art that maybe I could enjoy it, and that's really how that all started.
That's fantastic, bro. The moving from your home, you've spoken a bit about that, but talking about printing, you are the CEO, and president of Renaissance Print, right?
Renaissance Press.
Press.
Yes,
excuse me,
here in Dallas.
In Dallas. You know, I've seen over and over again that you have set up that business in a way that you can spend your life giving to other people.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit how you did that.
Yes. I have to be honest, because we're being honest about the imperfect side as well. In the early days, I acquired the business with my brother Mike in 2001.
Yeah.
And so in the early days of being an entrepreneur, 100% of your time, effort, and focus really goes into pouring everything you've got into the company, trying to grow it. Well, at that time, I closed on my business August 18th, and my daughter Jasmine was born August 28th.
That's right.
Just almost about 2 weeks later, and we already had an 18-month-old, my son, my firstborn, Garrett.
Yeah.
And so 2 very small children, starting a business and working 70, 80, 90-hour work weeks. But the day that I bought the business, I made a promise to God that I would not ever work on a Sunday. And so when we were putting in the 90-hour work weeks, that was a 6-day work week. Yeah. So you can imagine that there wasn't a lot of home time for me while building that. But that changed. Yeah. That changed dramatically as I began to grow in my faith and in my recovery, and I began to accrue just time under a great pastor and friend and leader, Dr. Jeff Warren, who is now the senior pastor at Park Cities Baptist Church, Dr. Grant Bird, who is a tremendous influence in my life. I would say one of my best friends. I I know I could call him and he would be there for
Yeah.
me and confide in him.
Good examples of servant
Great
leaders
examples
there.
of servant leaders. And
Yeah.
so it was modeled well for me. And I began to try to implement that, and then just trying to make sure that the business was something that I did, pulling back to 8, 9,
Yeah.
10 hours a day so that I could get home and be with my kids.
You didn't start a business and it was all successful. Like you
Oh,
said,
no.
you're putting in time and effort and
Absolutely.
everything into it,
Mhm.
and then you just start getting traction,
Yep.
and something big happened in 2015.
Something huge happened in 2015.
Sure
So I'm actually going to back it up just a little bit because I need to preface it with a story.
Go for it.
Dr. Jeff Warren was the pastor at First Baptist McKinney in 2008. He chose me along with 9 or 10 other guys to be part of a young men's leadership mentoring program. And it was there that he had first challenged us about mission work, serving others. So he challenged us to go on an international mission trip. I'd never been on one. And of course, he said, I want everybody to write down all the excuses why you can't or wouldn't go or haven't been. Well, of course, everybody writes down a whole list of, I'm a business owner. I can't leave. I can't afford it right now. Here's all these, a litany of just excuses is what they were. So I accepted this challenge and I went to Guatemala in July of 2008. That first mission trip really changed my life forever. And so fast forward that, I made several returning trips and worked with Pastor Daniel and Blanca Lopez. They're like parents to me, kind of. They're our Guatemala family, and their son, Danny Jr., amazing, godly people. And they, as soon as we got there, they exhibited what servant leadership was like. And so I returned to Guatemala 12 times since. It was just life-changing. And so in 2015, we had started to discuss another trip. Cross-eyed Skates was in full swing. And so you and I discussed taking a trip in the spring of 2016 to South Central LA.
That's right.
To work with some of the troubled youth there, and also take a bunch of our skaters from Cross-eyed Skates and just go and spend a week serving, growing in the Word, trying to develop these young men to become leaders, and young woman. My daughter Jasmine was on the trip. And so in planning that...
I'm going to preference that a little bit too. Okay. My son Garrett as well. We share. My son's a little G,
Big
right?
G and little G.
Big G, little G.
Because we confused them all the time. Hey, Garrett, and they'd both, what? Okay, so.
That's right. Right. Yeah, we started skateboarding with you guys. I'll get into that story a little bit too, but we went on that trip with JD, and it was a huge impact to our lives. JD has been a great servant leader, not only to my son, but to me as well. And the story he's about to tell us right here is just, I want you guys to really focus on that. What did you say, JD, right in the beginning? That it is, don't expect everything to be perfect. What did you say? Expect life to be interrupted.
I think that is the epitome of what servant leadership is. We have to be willing to be interrupted.
Okay, interrupt us now.
Interrupted. So I'm going to interrupt us and interject that story right quick. In 2015, in January the 15th, my business burned to the ground.
I remember that day.
It burned to the ground, and it was awful. I found out while I was driving down 75 headed into work on KRLD. They had a live report, 3-alarm fire at a printing company, and the first thought that really came to mind was, man, I really feel bad for whoever that is, because it's kind of a fraternity. You may know that with your business and painting. You work with other printers, and you're kind of like a family in a sense. And so I just, first thought was, man, God, I pray for those people that are going to be going through this. And then they panned to a live shot, live report, and they said they were standing in front of Renaissance Press. And my heart kind of sunk, and because I knew it wasn't good. From what I was hearing. So I got there, I rallied all of our employees. I told them this is not the end, that everything happens for a reason, and that it was just going to be a big interruption. But during that time, I really used it to focus on kind of regrouping, spending time with our cross-eyed family, you.
Yep.
Uh,
I want you guys to focus on this too. Watching the show, is that JD's business just burned down.
mhm,
He did not step back from serving the community. He was there every day because the same people he's serving are serving him as well, and we're loving on him, loving each other daily, being there to support each other.
Yep.
We can't do anything without a community of people around us, right?
Exactly.
Care about
Exactly. I'd been invited by two brothers that I have to mention, Byron and Juan Lopez. They lead up Motivo Urbano, which is a skateboarding ministry that I kind of helped get rolling in Guatemala. So that March 2015, we had a mission trip planned with a bunch of our skaters to Guatemala to go down there and serve some street kids and build a ramp in an abandoned warehouse. And so Byron called me after he found out that the building had burned and the business was just really literally in ashes. Said, "Hey brother, I understand if you can't come." And I was like, "Absolutely not." We've been planning this trip for a year. We have 29 skateboards that have been donated by godly people. It is about serving others first. And when our lives get interrupted, we cannot stop serving just because of our predicament. The one thing that I try to instill in my kids, the kids of Cross-Eyed Skates, my employees, anybody I come across, they know this about me. You have got to be willing to put aside anything and meet the needs of others because there are far less fortunate people than us. I owned a business. I had a house. I had a car. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I've served with people in Guatemala, in the Dominican Republic, in Honduras. I've been on several international mission trips. I've seen what it's like to have nothing. And therefore, I'm thankful for what I have.
What impact did, your business burnt down too?
Yes.
But another thing happened as well in your family.
In my family, I'd been married 19 years to the woman that I do still credit and attribute to saving my life. I was a very ungodly, bad person. When I met her, I was selling drugs to teenagers, using every day. I was a terrible alcoholic, drink every day, every night. And we began to date, and she invited me to church. And I literally hadn't been in a church building probably since 5th grade. And so that then began God's work in my heart. And he began to change me, and he used her as the vehicle. We can't save people, but God uses others to save people. And so I remember telling her when everything kind of came to a front about my addiction, and she was ready to leave. When we were just dating, we were actually engaged. I told her that there's no way she'd be able to change me. But she told me that she knew someone that could. And his name was Jesus. And so after 19 years of marriage and 2 children, she left. And she left, and it was what I had expected to be the worst possible outcome. And so the business is burned. My wife had been unfaithful and chose to leave me. I got custody of my kids, became a single parent. And in the fall of 2015, I stepped down as the director and the leader of Cross-Eyed Skates. But all while that was happening, you and I had planned a trip to South Central LA to go help the Lost Boys and the children of the Hathaway House, a home for troubled youth, Zion Community Church, going and holding a Wednesday night rally there. And so when things happen in our life, and we've made commitments to others, it's one of the things that I've realized the most. I've done poverty and prison ministry for a grand total of almost 12, 13 years. I served in the youth alongside Grant Bird at First McKinney for 10 years. 10 of the greatest years of my life serving middle school and high school age young people. And I know that when they need us and when they need someone to speak into their life, we have to be available. And if you make a promise to someone, especially in poverty, I've done a lot of poverty ministry. And if I tell a kid, hey, I'm going to be there on a Saturday morning to pick you up and take you to the skate park,
there, brother.
I'm there.
You're there.
Because their life is filled with broken promises.
Absolutely.
And so I've always made it a point to make sure that if I say something short of God taking me from this earth, I will do everything in my ability to fulfill that promise.
I don't doubt that at all.
And so you and I made a trip. We call it a scouting trip.
That's right.
December 2015 to kind of wrap up that year.
Yeah.
So I stepped down from Cross-Eyed. The ministry has officially ended, but you and I had made a commitment to 13 other kids that we're going to make this trip to LA, and we had made a commitment to some of the other people we chose to go and serve with. And so you and I flew to California, and we're sitting in a hotel, and I kind of broke down, and I told you that I thought my marriage was literally about to end. And we prayed, and you encouraged me, and I think that's when our friendship really was solidified. I knew you to be an awesome, godly man, but that's really, I think, when we were both, and you confided in me some of your struggles, and there's nothing more important. The Bible says iron sharpens iron.
That's right.
One man sharpens the countenance of another. It's very important to, as a servant leader, be willing to surround yourself with other people that are wise counsel. There's always someone wiser than you. There's always someone that knows something you don't know.
Absolutely.
So a servant leader, I think one of the main attributes is someone that's willing to listen.
Yes.
So we shared, we poured our hearts out. We went and we met with everybody else, and we came back, and my wife filed for divorce. And man, we began to just look forward to that trip.
I want to touch on one story on that trip.
There were several.
There were several, right? Man.
Mission trips are not easy. We'll say that.
Tell everyone about the kid, okay? And if you didn't come on that trip, what might have happened to him?
Okay, so...
Dude, we've been vulnerable here. So.
It is. I mean, whenever we look for someone to take on a trip, we often will have a meeting, or we met every Sunday at the time. And I have to be honest, Damien, Jeremy Vest, they stepped up as servant leaders for that ministry. We weren't a 501c3. We were just a group of guys trying to make a difference in the local skate scene here in DFW. And so these guys served along well. I said, thinking about going to LA. Damien said, me and Little G, we're in. I mean, day one. So him and I kind of brainstormed. We come up with a list of guys. But we had one of our get-togethers, which we had weekly. Hey, is anybody interested in going and serving? It is a big part. That's one of the things we wanted to instill. And so,
just go and skate California.
Yeah, one of the kids that went, and I'm not going to name any names, but God knows who they are, and was really struggling in his home life, struggling with trouble, and he came on that trip, and part of what we did was a daily devotion. It's not all about skateboarding and fun and games. We served in a field, I think it was about 75 to 80 acres. We harvested lettuce, we picked vegetables, we did all kinds of things in serving. And so we were trying to teach those kids that it's about daily devotion with God, which is very important, and also about serving others. But the kid that won the memorization was a kid that had struggled with dyslexia, had a trouble memorizing things. And he memorized several verses, and it just kind of blew us away.
That's right.
And he ended up accepting Christ on that trip as his Lord and Savior, and it was just awesome. God is always at work. You know, and if we think about this term, servant leadership, I believe it was Robert Greenfield about 30 years ago that actually coined the term. But it's the epitome of what that word means is really Jesus Christ. And when you think about it, the night before he died on a cross, and it's true. I believe it. I know that he did it to pay for all the bad things I've done. But the night before, as he ate with his disciples, his group of men that he chose to kind of pass the torch on, which is also important. We should be, as servant leaders, mentoring the next generation. He literally washed the nasty feet of those disciples.
That's right.
And so that is, to me, the epitome of probably one of the greatest examples of servant leadership. We've got to be able to humble ourselves to the point that we're willing to do anything for anybody. And if that means make time for someone that doesn't
Correct.
know the Lord, then that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Let's touch on skateboarding a little
Let's
bit.
do it.
All right. This is my skateboard, by
That's
the way.
Damien's.
And I skateboard 6'4". I'm clumsy. I fall. Wear pads if you try. All right.
Yeah.
Never too old to start skateboarding.
Never.
Right.
Never too old to start skating. I actually skated 12, 13-year-old. I believe that's probably one of the springboards that got me into partying and drinking at an early age.
My son Garrett was about 7, 8 years old, and he wanted to start skateboarding. So I thought, okay, I'll get him a skateboard, and then he loved it. So I thought, okay, I've got to find a skate park.
Absolutely.
Went out to McKinney Skate Park. I bought myself a skateboard, and I was like, okay, I'll push around with them a little bit, and we got some pads, and we fell a little bit, and we bumped into these bunch of misfits.
That's right.
All right.
Ragtag crew.
That's right. And to be honest with you, I bought a skateboard because I didn't want my son to be around a bunch of misfits.
Yes.
Okay. And there's a stereotype of around for skateboarders that these are punk kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Absolutely.
And that is so far from the truth. Mm-hmm. These kids that are like us, right? Yep. Come through hard times. There's some great kids. I mean, just in every angle.
The most amazing thing about skateboarding really is it transcends everything. Mm-hmm. It breaks down every social, economical, racial, everything. We had kids that were living in $500,000 homes that got a new skateboard every week.
That's it.
To kids that lived in the projects of East McKinney that had nothing. And we were able to sponsor them with skateboards and stuff. But when we got together,
oh man, it
was family.
Family, bro.
It was family. And we're not going to lie, those kids are at the park, the misfits, the ones that want to cuss and create a ruckus, and that became our primary objective.
Exactly.
They're the ones we're trying to reach. I can't touch on that with just not telling this quick story.
Go for it.
2 kids that were coming. One was kind of a misfit. The other one, her son was in youth Wednesday night and went to church, and they were heavily involved. We would go to skate parks, how we met you.
Yeah.
Hey, we're skating a couple hours. We're going to go out in the parking lot. Someone's going to sponsor food, tacos, pizza, whatever. It was also a way for us to help feed some of the kids in the poverty-stricken areas. And then I'm going to get up there and I'm just going to talk about how to live.
Yeah.
And that was really the foundation of what Cross-Side Skates was about. It's non-denominational. I didn't push a religious agenda. As a matter of fact, I think religion is dangerous. It's about relationships.
Absolutely.
That's what Christ is all about. That's what the Bible teaches us. It's about just forging relationships with these people, not being judgmental, being open and vulnerable ourselves, being authentic about my story with drugs and alcohol.
Yep.
And so I got a phone call from this mom. She's like, hey, I have a problem with what you're doing.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, maybe it's an atheist, or, maybe I took a kid out there that wasn't supposed to go out there because at home he's taught something else. It was the exact opposite. She said, my son goes to church. He's a Christian. He told me there's this Christian skateboarding ministry, and y'all went out there, and there was a bunch of kids out there cussing, and you got a bunch of kids out there that he knows from school, and they do bad things. They talk back to teachers. They get expelled. And I said, yeah, exactly. That's why Cross-Side Skates exist. These are the people that we're trying to reach. Yes. These are the kids that we're most interested in. But also, we want the so-called, the Christian kids, not to put a label on them, but the kids that love God, that want to also help change the skateboarding community here in DFW. That's why we exist. And that's why we did it. And that's what I told her.
Let's spin off that a little bit.
Okay.
There are at least 2 other groups that I know. 2 skate parks in Dallas.
Yes.
All right. We've got Guapo Skate Park.
Yeah.
All right. Great bunch of guys run that place.
Is. The OG Glenn.
Yes.
Glenn, shout out. I love that dude.
All right.
Justin.
And 4
great
down.
guys. And Al.
4 down. Mark Crum is spending his life. All right. Just ministering to kids.
Absolutely.
Trying to set up an environment, but it's not easy.
Exactly.
All right. These guys need the community support. They need the support of Dallas.
Absolutely.
The city needs to step in.
Especially Dallas proper.
That's right.
These
are guys that have
the
forked
suburbs,
out money
exactly
on their day-to-day lives. JD does the same. The kids get skateboards. They come in. Same with Mike. Everything's set up. They have get-togethers.
Yep.
The food is free. They take donations.
Yep.
You know, these are people that are serving in the community regularly on a regular basis in their day-to-day lives.
Yes.
And that's why we have them on the Servant Leadership Show. JD, final words, brother.
Final words, just to tie that up. There is a huge need in Dallas proper, as well as the suburbs, but especially when you talk about inner city, you know, East McKinney, where my heart really is and was, and really where this thing was founded. We have the same thing in inner city Dallas, Fort Worth, anywhere that you have a big metropolis, there's going to be poverty, there's going to be need. And so guys like Mike Crum and Rob Cahill with 4 Down, Al Coker and Justin McGuffin and the OG Glenn, the guys at Guapo, they're providing a place for these kids to come and skate. But they're also huge partners of Cross-Eyed Skates. And so I'm thankful for that. Because it really does take an army. It takes an army to come together to
help. What about the Point Skate Shop?
The Point Skate Shop, those guys as well. Every time I do anything, and this is where I could get in trouble, you know, with listing people that sponsor events. It's amazing to see if we come together and do it. We've done Skate for Life events. We've done suicide awareness events. We've done all kinds of different events. We've done homeless outreach events at 4 Down. Over the years, we've done several, and all I have to do is just a little Facebook post and then just donations pour in. People like Pushfoot Skateboards, Refuse Wheels, Alan and Eric, great dudes, you know, the Point Skate Shop, Daniel and Nate and those guys. There's just so many to list. I don't want to leave anybody out, but we have an awesome community here, a skate community here in Dallas. We have kids that still definitely need to be reached. We're just so grateful and we're humbled to be able to do something you love. I just turned 49 years old. And I'll end it with this. One of the greatest, I think, sayings of all time was J. Boy Adams, who was one of the original skate guys, you know, in the 70s. And he said, "You do not quit skateboarding because you got old. You get old because you quit skateboarding."
Thank you, my brother.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you for coming to the Servant Leadership Show today. It was a pleasure having you here, JD.
Thank you.
My brother.
It was an honor.
All right.
Love you, man.
It's always an honor having you. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks.